When you grow up as a Jehovah's Witness, you learn a very specific type of literacy, meaning you read the Watchtower, you find the answer, you highlight the answer, you parrot the answer back. There's no actual critical analysis of the ideas that are presented. They're basically just telling you what to believe. You find the answer in the paragraph, you answer back, and the same thing happens with their videos. There's a specific visual literacy that comes with their content. And the following video is the perfect example of the triple P, a propaganda puff piece. Let's watch. Okay, so we're presented with two very different scenes or vignettes side by side. You have the one worldly woman who's walking her daughter to the school bus. She sees her daughter's classmates. One of them's bullying the other one, and that really bothers her, obviously. Then some random guy on the street bumps into her, and he's really rude to her. Then she takes the train. She sees a homeless man. Then we see her reading the paper. She's reading about different current events. She's very disheartened and disturbed by what she's reading. Even the weather looks super dreary. Basically, just anytime she's in the frame, everything looks really bleak. But then we pan over to the Jehovah's Witness couple, who is setting up their carts in the middle of the town square so they can preach and pass out literature. They are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, taking pictures, seem to be completely unbothered by all the things that are weighing so heavily on the first lady, the worldly lady. And the first woman, this whole time, has been observing the Jehovah's Witnesses from a distance. She notices that they're really happy, and this supposedly stokes her curiosity to the point that she eventually works up the nerve to approach their cart and talk to them. Basically to find out, like, what's their secret sauce? Why are they so happy when clearly society is just rapidly going down the crapper? They end up preaching to her, and she seems to be so pleasantly surprised by what she's learning that it seems that she has hope now. The witnesses save the day. So earlier when I mentioned that the witnesses have a certain visual literacy, this is a prime example. The audience is spoon-fed visual cues and is supposed to reach the conclusion that the Jehovah's Witnesses are the obvious, simple answer to what is actually a very complex situation. The conclusion that we're supposed to draw from this propaganda puff piece is that this pleasant worldly lady is not only, so disheartened by the state of the world, but she's also completely decentered. She's confused, lacking direction, a ship without rudders. And if it weren't for the people behind the blue stamp, she would be completely lost. The video isn't just saying, hey, we know life can get really stressful. There's some terrible things happening in the world. It's good that you have some kind of spiritual inkling. You want to tap into your spirituality, connect to something bigger than yourself. Or yes, the Bible can give you peace and comfort. The message of this video is that you can only find peace and happiness through the group. Because obviously we look so different to everyone and everything around you. This isn't even sneaky or subtle. It's just a flat out lazy stereotype. And I want to talk about all the visual cues or symbols that the organization is trying to pump into a single 2-minute video. So number one, you have the stark contrast in physical appearance. Jehovah's Witnesses are always presented in overly demure, buttoned up conservative clothing typically bright colors, pastels, and khakis, and worldly people, or non-Jehovah's Witnesses, are usually wearing some sort of sloppy, dark, or provocative clothing, or look like they work at Hot Topic. So right away you have this visual coding that tells you the brightly colored, homogenized group represents unity and harmony, and therefore they are morally superior. As you can see, everyone else is dressed in darker colors, gray, black. That must say something about their character. They must be depressed or clueless or lacking a moral compass. It can't be that they just prefer a darker color palette and that's just their style. And you'll see this with other cults. They dress a certain way to distinguish themselves from the outside world, where the positive assumption only runs one way. I mean, I remember when I was card-carrying faithful Jehovah's Witness, I looked like I wandered off the set of a Beck video. I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you kill me? And even though, what I find funny about this, even though I was doing all the expected things, put in my time preaching, I went to all the meetings, I wasn't asked very often to be on convention or assembly parts, which is totally fine by me, I didn't want to be asked, but I do find it funny that like I was suspect in my own religious community because I didn't fit that highly manufactured, homogenized Jehovah's Witness look. Like, I don't know, boys, she wears Doc Martens to the meetings. She's a little bit of a loose cannon. But I digress. Okay, then we see the rude guy on the street. But I'm gonna be honest, this was weird to me that they chose this really grumpy, disgruntled man to bump into her and be like, hey, watch where you're going, lady. Most dudes are not gonna respond this way. Most people would not respond this way. You'd be like, oh, sorry. Oh, my bad. In fact, we're living in a time where more and more men are becoming acutely aware of the misogyny. Who would never dream of being like, F you, lady, to some like random nice lady on the street who accidentally bumped into him. Yes, they exist, but most people are gonna be reasonable. Oh, sorry, didn't see you. I mean, really, if anything, she's not on a particularly crowded sidewalk. How deep in thought do you have to be to not see the 6-foot Mack truck coming your way? Whatever, man or woman, the way they're trying to paint the average worldly person who's just going about their day, they want you to think that every non-Jehovah's Witness is just stewing in their own bitterness and hostility and is ready to unleash it at the slightest provocation or inconvenience. This was just kind of an over-the-top moment that was just like, okay, moving along here. The pleasant worldly lady gets on the train and she sees the homeless man. Obviously, this elicits her empathy and empathy from the viewer because most people don't want to see another human being suffering. But what also really royally pisses me off about this scene is that the same people who have the money to stage and produce a scene depicting the homeless could be using that same money to actually help the homeless. Okay, religious organizations receive tax breaks because they're supposed to be giving something back to the community, like a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen. Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization don't contribute to society in any way, shape, or form that isn't exclusively self-serving. Their idea or definition of service is pushing their cult literature on the public free of charge, which isn't gonna feed or care for the homeless or the disenfranchised. Jehovah's Witnesses don't even have any official structured programs in place to help their own parishioners. It's just whatever you need in the congregation, it's just left up to individual Jehovah's Witnesses to help each other out, and it's entirely out of pocket. Their centralized leadership or authority, the governing body at their headquarters in upstate New York, provides zero assistance to individual congregations to help struggling families or for any kind of community outreach programs. So what happens is Jehovah's Witnesses will say that homelessness is just too big and pervasive a problem to worry about. It's too big of a problem to solve, so just let it go. Instead, you should pour all your energy and resources into the organization because we teach that paradise is going to solve all the world's problems. It'll be solved in paradise. Jehovah will solve the homelessness problem in paradise. So don't worry, that homeless, hungry man in the video, Jehovah sees him and he's so disturbed by this and he'll take care of it. Eventually, Jehovah's Witnesses will espouse the importance of providing practical assistance to others in the congregation, but refuse to extend this same compassion to the outside world. By pretending to empathize with unspeakable human suffering, they claim to be sickened by the world's problems, when they are actually part of the problem. But then I gotta say, we get some comic relief in what is probably the dumbest part in this entire video. And that's when the worldly lady tries to approach the two witnesses at their cart. They are so high on life. They are so stoked to be Jehovah's Witnesses that they don't even notice her trying to approach them. You're trying to convince me, the viewer, that these Jehovah's Witnesses are having such a good time. They're taking selfies and pictures of each other to document how much fun they're having, that the worldly lady actually became a casualty of their euphoria. You're telling me that they are so preoccupied with how much fun they're having that the sister doesn't sense the presence of another warm body within a 10-inch radius of her at any given moment. And her equally dense husband doesn't notice the stranger awkwardly dancing around his wife during their little Instagram moment. I mean, it's laughable and completely unrealistic, but it is a red flag. There's a range of human emotion, and any individual or group that only expresses joy and happiness all the time, you want to proceed with caution. No one person or group is the path to world peace. Because if that were the case, there would be world peace. Anything that appears that perfect and happy all the time, there's a catch. I don't have anything against the individual witnesses that appear in these videos. I got absolutely nothing against them on any kind of personal level. I have only ever taken issue with the overarching authority of the organization, the governing body, and the way they are manipulating and abusing the good people that appear in these videos. How they, the governing body, dictates people's lives and threatens family bonds. This sister seems really sweet and sincere, and if she's truly happy with her life, great. But the problem is, the organization is trying to position themselves as the only light in a dark world. They are trying so hard to impose a stark contrast between the witnesses and the outside world, where there really isn't one. People of other belief systems are just as happy, if not more so. And they want you to believe that the world is getting worse by the minute, when we're actually doing far better than previous periods in history. These lazy moral shortcuts paint a skewed perspective of how the world actually is. A complex place with good and bad people, massive positive achievements despite some setbacks in other areas, all with the endgame of emotionally manipulating you into buying their brand of religion in face of evidence that says the opposite. By pelting the viewer with negative imagery demonstrated solely by people outside the group, the message is clear. Worldly people have no hope without Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not the meatiest, craziest video they've ever made, but I gotta say, it packs a lot of culty punch in a brief window. Good little propaganda puff piece. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day, stay safe, and I will see you guys soon.